All right, here we go. Thank you so much for coming to join me today. This is Suzanne. And I'm Coach Jen Matthews. And as you guys probably know, if you've seen any of the videos before, Suzanne and I are going to dish today on a couple different things. There's a little bit of her coaching journey, because Suzanne and I have coached together for a while. There's a little bit of her professional journey in terms of where she's really taken herself professionally in the coaching process. And I think there's just some wisdom and good pieces to take away. So a little bit of a story share and a little bit of a what's happening now for us both, because we're kind of integrating together a little bit. Yeah. So like I said, Suzanne Jagger, and go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
So Jen and I have been working together for about 3 years, and she really helped me get going in my current business, which is I'm an owner of a medical spa in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a nurse anesthetist by training, so I had a little bit of a career shift, and that's how Jen kind of entered into my life.
Yeah. So, and what did you originally come to coaching for? Because it definitely wasn't necessarily to launch this whole new business.
Right, exactly.
What originally brought you into the fray? Like, what was going on in your life?
Right. So I had been, like I said, I'm a nurse anesthetist by training and had spent almost 10 years doing that and needed to make a change professionally from one job to another. And the bottom started to fall out of that. So I had a friend that had coached with Jen, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, most of yours comes from referral base. Is that right? So yeah, so she had helped her during a really tough time, and I was having a super tough time in my career, and it wasn't going the direction I was going, and I felt stuck, and I didn't know how to get unstuck. And it was just so emotionally overwhelming that my friend said, you need to talk to this gal. She's going to help you.
Yeah, and the emotional overwhelming part was like, what was that piece?
That it was the piece was that my job had become unlivable because it was no longer serving me. It was more painful to go to work than it was to not go to work. And then many people just live it. They just they can live with it. And it was slowly killing me. And so, and it was hurting me and therefore hurting my family. And so I needed help to figure out how I was going to move forward.
Yeah, and at the time, you had everybody at home. You had all your kids when we started.
Oh yeah, two small kids. I think my kids were like 3 and 5. You know, we had my health benefits through my work. You know, it was really stable. In what I do, there aren't a huge number of career choices. If you're a nurse anesthetist, that's what you do. That's your trade. So you have to be really thoughtful about your career path.
Yeah. No, and you're pointing to the concept that a lot of the clients that I end up working with are very hyper specialists, right? Like I work with athletes or I work with parents. And in your case, obviously you're a parent as well, but even your professional specialization is very hyper specialized to a particular task and a particular environment in which you can do that task.
Exactly.
And so part of what I'm hearing was overwhelming was the concept of what in God's name am I supposed to do somewhere else when this is what I know how to do.
This is what I know how to do. And it's not like it's not like those jobs are just sitting out there. And I think you see that with a lot of people that niche in their professions is that you just can't go across the street and go get a job doing what you do. It's either going to be moving everybody or it's going to be some kind of, major upheaval to find a similar something elsewhere, or you're going to have to pivot. And stay where you're at. Which
is what you eventually figured out to do. What you created was this ability to pivot.
Yeah, right. Which I didn't have. I hadn't had that. So
what's changed in your life? What's changed in your life since you started coaching? Since you discovered the pivot and you found a new way to apply the same skills in a completely different environment? What's changed in your life?
What's changed is. Well, that's a tough one. I mean, what's changed is that through, I think, the coaching experience, I have discovered that I have the ability to do that pivot. So just because you may not know what is coming or how it's going to work out, that you have the ability to walk the path and deal with the bumps in the road, to get really cliche. I mean, a lot of people want to see the entire road of how it's going to happen, how it's going to play out, and what the end result's going to be. They want that before they even start. and to get comfortable with the discomfort of not knowing exactly how it's going to play out, but know that you have the skill set to persevere through it and to succeed in spite of it. And also to be able to make choices, have trust in your ability to make choices that are going to lead to a positive end result, takes a lot of the stress out. It's not that it's not stressful, but it's a different kind of stress.
Yeah, so it's so I'm hearing coping mechanisms, right? When things get challenging and it's very easy to just go back or go to what you know or give up on the plan or, I can't do it, right?
Right.
So the coping mechanisms to deal with the stress of the unknown. And like self-confidence come to mind in terms of building your self-confidence or building the tools you have to just feel empowered to keep firm in the direction that you've committed to going.
Right. Well, you trust the process as opposed to the end result. That's a big one.
And so coaching has your coaching is what made that connection for you in terms of being able to trust the process versus just the outcome.
Exactly. Being a super concrete, goal-driven, task listy kind of person, that's a huge deal for me to be able to trust that every day these little incremental things that I'm doing are the successes, honestly, and it's not necessarily the destination, right? So that's a hard one. I still grapple with that one. Like every day. But
and what do you have now what are you using now to be able to you're saying grapple, but it's really more like respond to that, right? Like it's less reactive than before.
Right. And that's a tool that you've taught me. I mean, was that you acknowledge that which is causing you, not necessarily distress, but whatever that's distress, that triggers action, but doesn't need to be distress because it doesn't need to be negative, right? We apply that emotion to it most of the time, unless you're being chased by a bear, in which case I'll give it to you. But a lot of it is how you respond to it, and yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, so just on a daily, it sounds like your ability to respond has changed.
Yes. And my emotional response to it is acknowledgement and knowing that this is just part of it and not assigning a negative emotion to it.
Just because you're having an emotional experience is not bad.
It's not necessarily bad.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Nope.
You're creating a change, and when you create a change, your whole body and mind and heart and soul go,
Yeah.
And it's okay. That's part of the process of change, is acknowledging that it's happening, noticing how you're responding, or I should say noticing how you're reacting, and then using the tools that you've gained in order to be able to respond and kind of stay the course or keep going.
Yeah, I think so.
What's different for you at home since coaching?
Well, a lot. I mean, I think I think my husband has really responded to having a less reactive wife at home. That I didn't realize was really triggering for him. And so that there would be, if I brought home that negative energy of uncertainty or discord or, stress, that would trigger him to be more like that. And so then it just kind of fed off each other in a negative way. So the fact that I'm coming from a different place, and again, it's not that I'm not stressed out. Having too much on my plate it seems to be how I operate. But more so, I'm bringing it is that I'm just busy in a good way, and that has created his ability, or helped his ability to help me. It's freed him to be like, okay, how are we going to tackle this? Because he's an engineer personality. He wants to do stuff and make it better and solve my problem. So I can give him the problem and be like, I got that. I'm like, fantastic.
One less thing for me to do.
Awesome. You got this. And so I gave him Costco, and that man can tear up Costco. Who knew? All you moms out there that think you've got to do, no, send them. They're doing a great job.
Well, what you're pointing to also is your willingness to receive help. Your willingness to say, my plate's full, and when I add one more thing, here's the first thing to shove off.
Yeah.
And that if you've got people in your life, and we usually all have people in our life who we might not want to ask them, we might not be comfortable asking them, but the reality is if we ask them, they probably help us. Yeah. Especially with the small stuff that are those first things to go. So just want to point to the fact that your willingness to be helped and your willingness to say, I don't have to do this, like other people can do these things, has been that's a huge shift. It feels
That
like
is a huge shift, yes, because I never want to burden anybody with my problems, but then I was like, well, who am I kidding? I'm making more of a burden by being overburdened, and just that concept, like, oh, duh. It seems so obvious. In hindsight, it's always like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. And yet, they're not, because we all do it to some extent.
Absolutely. Me too. We all do it to some extent. We think if we hold on to it, that we're somehow helping someone else.
Right.
But the reality is when you hold on to something, you're restricting someone else from having an opportunity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're literally holding an opportunity that you don't actually have the bandwidth or ability to do.
Yeah.
And if you release it, God only knows who's going to step up and take it. And not only that, but they might need it, want it, or really be more willing than you ever knew to take it on and do it. And that then changes that level of connection or trust or intimacy that you're talking about, where you release something and someone goes, oh yeah, I got that. I mean, I experienced that with my children as well. Or I should say my child, because I only have one, but I experienced that with kids as well. When I release something to them as a coach, they're like, oh yeah, I got that. I'm like, oh, thank you. Because I don't, I don't have it. But
well, and I'd like to throw out to the parents out there, I mean, the fact that I've decided that I am not like the ultimate parent in the situation allowed him to step into that role. So I'm finding that the kids are going to both of us more for questions or solutions, or who's going to be there isn't always mom. It's now, well, is dad available? Is mom available? So they're using us more as a team, and it's not just mom, 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 mom. And it's fabulous.
There's beyond benefits to that for them, for you.
Oh, for everybody. He's fully involved, and he's emailing the teacher, and he's going to soccer practice, and he's a much more involved parent. I think a much more satisfied parent. And the kids are getting the benefit of both of us.
Yeah. So. And it sounds like they've shifted to that energy of, because the openness is there, they're like, yeah, we'll walk in and take advantage, not take advantage, but like take use of that resource and
who's making dinner tonight? Is it mom or dad? I'm like, well, if dad's in the kitchen, you better go ask him. So yeah, that's great. Yeah,
awesome.
I'm delegating into the kids more, because I'm like, they're big enough. They're 8 and 10. Chip in, man.
Yeah, there's so much they can do. I know when you said who's making dinner, I thought you were going to be like, well, it could be you pretty soon.
Yes, this morning we were both busy. Justin had a meeting. I had to get ready, and the kids go, "Where's breakfast?" I'm like, "What you making?" And I looked down there, and my daughter had delegated to my son half of the breakfast, and she was making the stuff on the stove, and like they made their own breakfast, packed their own lunches, and they're so proud of themselves. I mean, like then they're like marching off, like, "We've got it, Mom!" Like, exactly. That translates eventually to like bigger things and not just lunch.
That's awesome. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So it sounds like, if you describe the shift from when you started to now, like what is there a metaphor? Is there something, an image or something that comes to mind of the shift that you've really created in your life after your coaching?
Metaphor. Okay. Getting on the tricky stuff because I'm so literal.
Be literal. I'm like the metaphor girl. Be literal. What's the big difference? Like, describe the difference in life before compared to life now. Be literal. Go for it.
Okay, so and Jen often has me draw, which is funny because it does open up that part of my brain that is not typically operating. But I guess in the past, I had operated like an island, and I was, over here, and then these people were like over there doing their thing, and it was such a long reach to, incorporate all those things. But now it's almost like a little functional solar system, and we're, got the sun, and then we're all planets, but we're all overlapping, and everyone's like doing its thing, and we're all rolling around each other. And it's much more, some people get farther away, we have to pull them back in. Yeah. But it's just a much more like functional system as opposed to independent entities.
And so I'm hearing a sense of integration, like things are coming together, everyone's a moving piece. And there's an integrated way that you are learning to move with each other in relation to each other in a way that frees you from being the sole responsible, I've got to do it all story, from living that story.
Yeah, and that was a story we grappled with a lot, was that I've got to do everything story. Mm-hmm. Not because I feel compelled to micromanage per se, but I felt responsible for everything.
Yeah.
And that's going to be something that is intrinsic in me that I still have to be like, acknowledge and be like, okay, am I? Do I have to be? Is this worth of my time, energy? Is this productive? Does this get me where I want to go? So that'll be something I think I work well on forever. But you know, it's definitely a work in progress, and it's made a huge difference to acknowledge that no, I'm not. You know, I don't have to do it all.
Well, and that's the piece that feels like it's a supernatural segue to the business stuff, because how is owning your own business now and having shifted that professional focus from working for someone else, where you're responsible for a specific amount, that's your job description that they say you're responsible for, right? And taking on, you know, the ownership of a business and really running things. How does Aura help you with that story of saying, do I have to do it all?
Wow. So, you know, that is such a journey from when you start something to when it starts to grow. I mean, they really talk about the stages of business, and it just does take a certain amount of time. So like when you start, there is no money, there is no one else to delegate to, but you start building with, you know, when I talk to new people interested in starting a business, I'm like, begin with the end in mind. Start that path, knowing that you're going to start integrating people into your business and having help. And what does that look like? And what do you need to offload first? And what little pieces can you start the practice of offloading? Whether it's, you know, like you brought in somebody to do tasky stuff that you could just delegate to, right? You don't have a staff per se.
No, I have a virtual assistant because I can't do all the little stuff.
You have a virtual assistant, you know, right? Exactly. Yeah, and the first thing I brought in was like someone to do the technical stuff, you know, because I stink at it. It takes me 18,000 hours and stress. And actually I started with bookkeeping. That was where I thought, technically I can do it. I have a business, almost a business minor. I'm like one class short. Anyway, and I was like, I can do this. Well, of course you can, but should you? No, you shouldn't. If that's not your specialty and that's not generating you income and it's building stress and keeping you from doing other things, then yeah, that's the first thing you offload. At any rate, so the whole point is starting that mindset of who can help you, what's the first thing that needs to give. And as I continue to grow, being thoughtful about bringing in those people and where they can build me up and fulfill my areas of weakness, I think is a great way to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where they can bolster the parts that are, like you said, not your jam, not your area of expertise.
I have many.
Don't we all? And it's so humble of us to admit it.
Yes, so humble.
It's hard when you run your own business to admit, like, this isn't my thing, especially when there's pressure to literally do it all. There's pressure to be able to do it all. So, so the other thing I'm being reminded of as we're talking is that you've gone on a journey of learning from those initial stages of what is my specialty? What am I good at? What do I enjoy about this specialization, you know, this professional specialization that I have created and have this decade of experience in? Because I'm not just going to let it go, right? This is what I do. And you went through this learning process of kind of starting down that path of what you did love and how you would apply it in the world if you could design it. Mm-hmm. And as you've gone through that learning process and continue to build to educational things like this experience of, okay, I can't do it all, and having that reinforced in your business in addition to at home. So I know it's a really long segue, but I get this sense of like, that's part of what's brought you to teaching, right? Because now you have programs to help other people, because you knew you weren't the only one that wanted to get out and have new things to do. So what have you created for people? What is the program that you've created to help other anestheticians kind of step out of the boundaries and explore other opportunities?
Yeah. So, you know, I've always been one of those people that when I find something that I think is amazing, I love to preach it, you know, whether it's a new toaster, or an experience or a travel destination. And you're one of those things that I love preaching about because I'm like, it's life-changing for me, and allowed me to grow. What I wanted to do with teaching is that when I, you know, left doing anesthesia full-time and started a business, there were very few people to find out how to do this and what's it look like. And I love researching things too with the hilt, and then I love telling people about it. So I wanted to create a course that taught how to do injectables, aesthetic injectables to CRNAs, because we're so nichey. We're excellent with our hands. It's something that we can do that's outside of the normal thing that you can do with your practice. And it's something that's yours that you can depend on and grow on rather than being a employee, you know? So, and a lot of CRNAs are, one, really disenfranchised, and two, want to feel empowered. And so I wanted to create a class that taught not only the how of doing injectables, but the how to become your own boss, how to grow your own business, how to shift your mind in from being dependent to being independent and empowered. But a lot of people have trouble with that. We've been employees for so long, and we've been told you can't a lot. And it continues across the country. And one of the things that's really beautiful about my class is that people come from all over the United States and get together and have a moment of going, oh wait, you having this experience too? And so, but it makes it really hard for people to believe that they can do it and make the right steps to doing it, which is why I think integrating something like coaching into their growth opportunity professionally is also to do the personal growth of learning to make the right decisions and being in the right mindset to be successful.
We have a tendency to think when we make a change, like what's coming up for me is we have the tendency to think when we make a change that it's just about the change. And the change, if I flip it over, is actually the drop, right? It's like that quintessential drop in the pond and the relentless amount of ripples that expand all the way out farther, wider than you ever knew. Like you couldn't have possibly predicted the degree to which making this change would shift you and your life.
Right. Oh, no clue. You can't.
And people know, like they have a sense that that's there, right? It's about this big. But then when they go to take action, like they sign up for the course or they learn the craft or they step into something, and then they're like, oh God, now it's this big, right? And then it gets bigger and bigger. And eventually it's almost like it's an energy that you've got to let wash over you and go ahead and step into it willfully and say, I sparked this change. I wanted this change. And in order to really fully embody this change with all of me, I think I got to do more than take this class. I think I got to do more than learn this new application of a skill.
Right. Because if you come at it with the old mindset, it's going to fail because it's not what you're coming to with it is an old paradigm that doesn't necessarily work for what the new opportunity is presenting. So how are you going to embrace that? You can't, again.
When you're changing an aspect of your identity, anytime you're a specialist in a particular skill, I don't care if it's a parent, an esthetician, an athlete, a CEO, it doesn't matter. If you have spent years and years and years or hundreds of thousands of dollars on your education, right? If you've spent so much time and energy on a specific task and you go to change it, your identity is going to fight you. It's going to go, you're going to get fear and doubt and all that stuff comes up. Yeah. Truly across the process, or some people, it's just like the wall they hit the second they try to make the change, right?
Right.
And so there is, we don't change as people. Like we are born who we are. But who we are gets covered up by a lot of the experiences we have. And often what I feel like, and this is my experience with you, like as the coach, is that you were called to make this change because the way you were working and the system you were operating within, it didn't align with who you are as a person.
Right.
The work did, helping people, the specialization of the work, the very linear, specific, detail-oriented, here's my objective, get it done. Yeah, awesome. You're like, all of that is you. But then the container that it came in didn't match up.
Right.
And so there is this piece of when you step into a professional change and you try to apply the same skills in a new way, there are new aspects of you to discover that are part of what will make you successful. And you may not have needed to use them in the previous application of that skill. It's something that is going to grow because you made the change. Yeah.
That is an excellent summary.
You're like, what? I'll have what she's having.
Exactly. Yep. Like, yes, that's it.
Well, you gave me a teaser before we started of this idea of, I had asked why are you integrating coaching into this education platform, right? Like what is the calling to say, to just give people the information and just tell your story and let them understand a little bit of the journey and the change that you faced. And I'm curious because you're like, oh, I like my answer. So like, why are you integrating this coaching work into your education platform?
Because I feel like, I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but it's that what I need people to understand when they make this, career shift for themselves is that, they're changing their life vision. They're changing what their goal is. And, it's kind of what we just said was that they are going to need help to make the shift of personal identity in order to be, to move down this new path. And if you come at it again from this old kind of way of thinking, you're never going to be able to make it. And you're going to succumb to the pressures of trying to fit old with the new that doesn't work, right? So that's what you're here for, is to help make that shift of how you view yourself, how you view your future, and then making decisions with this new goal in mind as opposed to the old goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a piece, as you're talking, so many things came to mind, but there's a piece of like honoring what you're stepping from.
Yeah.
And the really conscious exercise of deciding what parts of it you're taking with you and
Mm-hmm.
what parts of it that you're actually going to be letting go.
Right. Well, like, and people are like, well, how do you move from doing anesthesia to doing aesthetics? And this is something we coached on a few times. I'm like, well, my ultimate goal in life is to alleviate pain, like literal pain in the OR. In aesthetics, people come in because they feel a different kind of pain about whether it's aging or they just don't feel right or whatever. And I'm taking away that kind of pain. And then that's translated into teaching because I'm taking CRNAs who feel professional pain and I'm giving them a new tool to make their lives better. And I find that even more rewarding because I'm helping my profession of peers or my, people. I'm helping my people.
You're helping your people, absolutely.
And I love helping my people. Like, show like you can do it too. Like, I'm not doing anything different or special per se, but there's a lot of roadblocks, and I figured out how to knock down a few of them, and I'll help you figure out the others together. So, that's kind of like my mission is pain alleviation. I'm walking Advil. I don't know. So, and then being able to identify that, like that kind of little core bit, that little glowing star, it makes, if you know where you're operating from, it makes everything easier.
Yeah. Well, it just clarifies the energy of what you're putting into it. And then when you put in a different energy, you can, if you're a felt sense person, you can feel it, right? And if you're more of a logical, like thinking linear person, then you'll put in the old energy. And when it doesn't work, you can see the equation of like old plus new created hybrid. Oh wait, I actually wanted more new. So which means I gotta get rid of that old part, right? So it's either way, you're walking yourself down a path. There's a lot of discovery. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of change, and none of that. It's all good. And being able to put yourself in a position where you can see that as all good, that to me is the biggest deal. Like that's a huge deal. So
yes, that is a huge deal.
Both come from this like helping our people, right? Like, and I was trained very specifically in a specialty for sport as a dancer. I was like, what the heck do you do with dance outside of dance? How could I possibly apply the skills of that like somewhere else in the world? And it took me a long time, but I found all of that discovery and process brought me to coaching. So I, like you, want to alleviate their pain, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to shorten the time it takes for you to know yourself. Mm-hmm. I want to shorten, and it's not like we're having to rush by any means, but it can be uncomfortable. It can be challenging. And if you and I can make that challenge that much more just able to be overcome, able to be conquered, or even able to just be integrated and seen as good and positive. Mm-hmm. Like that's the work that we're doing. We want you to step into being as much of who you are as you're meant to be on this earth,
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I know.
It is.
So you take away the pain. My job's to help you build the springboard, and then we just light the match and people launch themselves off into
just off and running. And it's so fun. And how fun is it? How rewarding is it to watch people that do it? I mean, yeah. It's like hugely gratifying. It's like watching, anyway, I just love it. And when I see people succeed with what they, what I've taught, and then they take it and run with it, and how they pay it forward. And then, like you said, the trickle effect of like how it affects the people around them. I mean, it's it's awesome. It's fantastic.
Yeah, your example of the lone island to the integrated solar system is pretty, I mean, that's pretty profound to really have that huge shift from I am on an island, I have to do it all, to I now operate as part of a balanced system and everybody's moving and everybody's flowing and we all do our part and it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Was there anything else that you want to, any kind of last words or anything you want to add as far as just the experience for your students or the integrating coaching or just introducing coaching as a process to taking a new professional direction in life and applying that specialization?
I think, you know, I kind of feel like there's almost nobody who couldn't benefit from some degree of coaching in their life. We all have a narrative that we tell ourselves, not extensively well read, but, you know, we create these stories that define our experience. And sometimes we need help to rewrite that story. And because we believe it, you know, we believe in that story. It's holding it together. And sometimes we need someone to help you look back and be like, really, is that what the story is telling? You know, does it need to say that? Can you get out a pencil and maybe mark out some stuff and like turn the page and write something new, right? So
I'm laughing because I feel like I've said those exact words to you.
Oh, really?
So for people watching, forgive me. I'm not laughing at the process or laughing at people going through the. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm having deja vu of our coaching sessions, right? And even of my own coaching sessions, like my own coaching sessions, because I do the same thing. I tell the stories too, and my coach has to be like, hold on a second, you just started telling a story, you know?
Yeah, and I'm teaching my kids and kids are the most hilarious. Is they'll be like, my daughter will tell this whole thing about something happening, and she goes, and then it's my brother's fault, and like. You're like,
wait a second, hold on.
What we do as adults in a more way, and because we're adults, we're like, this one's real. This one I know to be true.
Whatever you're telling yourself in your head, it's 100. Your head will tell you it's 100% legit.
100%. So I guess part is to be the story editor and be like, you know, maybe we can strike that paragraph and start a new chapter. You know, let's re-examine that. And I think we all need that like third party person to be like, to help be not a reflection, but what do you call it? It's not a mirror, but you're changing it up, and we need that help sometimes.
Yeah. It's the piece of coaching that I feel like always makes it work one of the best, like makes it work the best in terms of strategies to use for just personal growth, is that it comes without judgment. Like, I don't care what comes out of your mouth. Whatever comes out of your mouth is useful. Whatever you're feeling in your body is helpful. Whatever comes up is coming up for a reason. And we just look at it without judgment, and we look at it with acceptance that it's there. And having a third party, you know, a somewhat detached third party to just be your sounding board allows you to notice when it is a story versus what you want and get those things to line up better.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah.
Cool. Well, the last kicker, and then we got to go because you got a client soon.
Yeah.
Is, why are you still coaching?
Yes, that's so funny. So I was telling you that, you know, what brought me was being at this like total bottomed out in my career. And then you helped me get through that. And we've made all these decisions that have brought me from where I was in the bottom of the barrel of, gosh, when was it? Spring of like 2016, I think. It's, you know, almost 3.5 years later. Why do I still coach? It's because I still find huge value in having your insight into, and I guess that story thing is huge because I'm always telling myself something, and you're able to be like, is that really what's happening? Is that what you want to be happening? How else could you think about this? And is this honoring your goals? And you know, it's not always the position of your best friend or your spouse, and certainly not your children, to be that person. You really need someone this is your jam, you know, and to have you as a resource, you know, both as a kind of a business, you know, fairy and like a personal life fairy, really helps me stay on the right path. And so I so look forward to our coaching sessions because I'm like, I've got that right person to help me continue to make decisions, because it's not like it stops. There's no done.
I know. It's relentless.
There's no there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And some people are like, oh, I couldn't coach for 3 years. I can't afford a coach for 3 years. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? You use the coach when you need it. And if it's continuous, it's continuous. And sometimes you coach for 6 months and then you shift off for 6 months and you go, I got to come back. I got too much stuff. I need your help. Right.
Yeah.
The bottom line is what you're pointing to is alignment. You're pointing to the fact that initially you coached for cleanup. You showed up and said, I'm in a mess. I'm overwhelmed. Help me clean this up and clarify and figure out what the heck is going on. And as things got clearer and clearer, well, then you want to stay on track. Like, then you want to stay on the path that you created. And you're like, an audience, total surprise. Like, she didn't tell me what this answer was. So I'm like, oh, cool. I want to know what it is. But I hear you saying alignment. Like, we made the path. We forged the path. Well, by God, we might as well keep coaching to make sure that you actually stay on the path.
Stay on the path. Because it's so easy. It's just like a diet. It's real easy to fall off and be like, oh, Oreos, right? We've all done it. Yeah. So I'd like to acknowledge the Oreo and then go back to having, some cucumber.
The fruit. Yes. Grab for the
something that honors the actual goal. So anyway.
Yeah, staying in alignment. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all your wonderful wisdom and wonderful experience in telling your story. I know that it will be helpful just for people that, like, the island example is huge, and so much else you said is going to be helpful to so many people. So thank you for coming on and sharing and being willing to be here and just be you, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you for everything.
You're welcome. All right. And so we will see all of you the next time on the next interview. Have a great day.